What happened to Spock's two Star Trek protégés? Few characters in Star Trek embody mentorship and legacy as profoundly as Spock. From his earliest appearances aboard Captain Kirk's Enterprise, Spock embodied both the struggle and the triumph of living between two worlds. As the half-Vulcan sought to reconcile his logic with his human heart, he also became a teacher, guide, and inspiration to others. And while Spock mentored many colleagues in subtle ways, only two characters are truly remembered as his direct protégés, Saavik and Michael Burnham. Both figures had unique bonds with Spock that highlighted different aspects of his character. Saavik reflected his Vulcan commitment to discipline and resilience, while Burnham tapped into his human compassion and capacity for growth. But what ultimately happened to Spock's two protégés remains one of the franchise's most fascinating, and sometimes overlooked, stories. Saavik, the promise that never was. When audiences first met Saavik in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, she was portrayed as an ambitious young Starfleet officer under Spock's guidance. Played by Kirstie Alley in her debut and later by Robin Curtis, Saavik represented Spock's natural role as a mentor, training the next generation of officers with the same patience Kirk had once afforded him. Saavik was striking not only because of her discipline, but because she was openly emotional compared to other Vulcans. Later materials revealed she was half Romulan, a fact that made her kinship with Spock even more meaningful. Both were children of divided heritage, striving to master logic while wrestling with emotion. Her relationship with Spock deepened dramatically during the search for Spock. After Spock's sacrifice in The Wrath of Khan, it was Saavik who tended to his rapidly aging body on the Genesis planet. She taught him Vulcan traditions and rituals, ensuring his essence survived until it could be restored. In this way, she was not only his protégé but also his caretaker. Without Saavik, Spock might never have been fully reborn. And yet, after these films, Saavik virtually disappeared. Plans for her to betray the crew in the voyage home were scrapped, and the character was quietly written out. The last canonical reference places her back on Vulcan, where she dedicated herself to rebuilding her life and career outside of Starfleet. Some expanded universe stories suggest she became a respected diplomat and teacher on her own, passing forward what she had learned from Spock. In many ways, Saavik represents the road not taken in Star Trek. She had the potential to become a recurring force in the franchise, possibly even Spock's successor in Starfleet. Instead, her story remains a bittersweet fragment, a glimpse of Spock's influence on the next generation that was never fully realized. Michael Burnham, the sister who carried his legacy. If Saavik was Spock's protégé in the films, Michael Burnham was his counterpart in modern Star Trek. Introduced in Star Trek Discovery, Burnham, played by Sonequa Martin Green, was Spock's adoptive human sister, raised alongside him by Sarek and Amanda. While their sibling bond was initially strained, Spock resented Burnham's attempts to protect him by pushing him away. Their relationship evolved into one of the most emotionally resonant arcs in Discovery. Unlike Saavik, who looked to Spock as a teacher, Burnham stood as his equal in many ways. They mirrored each other's struggles as children of two worlds, and their journeys often ran in parallel. Spock's mentorship of Burnham was less about instruction and more about recognition. By accepting her as his sister, he acknowledged the humanity within himself. Burnham, in turn, carried Spock's ideals forward, valuing logic but never losing sight of empathy, morality, and the pursuit of unity. Her ultimate journey into the far future cemented her place as one of the Federation's most important leaders. Burnham's role as captain of the Discovery allowed her to embody the very balance Spock himself sought for his entire life: the ability to live authentically, embrace contradictions, and lead with both reason and compassion. What makes Burnham's story particularly poignant is that she fulfills what Saavik's arc never fully explored, becoming not just Spock's protégé, but also a lasting extension of his legacy. If Spock's destiny was to bridge worlds, then Burnham became the bridge itself, uniting Starfleet, Vulcans, Romulans, and distant futures under a single vision. The legacy of Spock's mentorship. Spock's two protégés illustrate very different aspects of his character. Saavik represents the Vulcan Spock, the teacher, the disciplinarian, the scientist passing down knowledge to the next generation. Her arc, though cut short, demonstrated how Spock inspired loyalty, resilience, and intellectual curiosity. Burnham represents the human Spock.